Hello, all you cosmic travelers and wanderers. This is Darlene Grift and K. Melissa Waterman, inviting you to join us today in our episode of Expansion from Within, Exploring Multidimensionality.
Let me introduce you to my friend and dear colleague, Darlene Grift. She is a lifetime experiencer, a medical intuitive, and a multidimensional mediator for over 35 years. She's also an author, an artist, a teacher, and a mentor for spiritually invested people.
And K. Melissa Waterman is my friend and colleague, and she's an intuitive mentor, a spiritual teacher. She also works with energy on many levels. In the past, Melissa has worked with Dr. Joe Dispenza on his research team.
Join us on our journey of meeting multidimensional beings, exploring what it means to be human, and expanding our spiritual evolution.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. The recording that you'll hear about Ellie was done prior to the Council of 28 transitioning into the evolves. So have a great listening.
Well, it looks like today we're going to interview yet another member of the council. We're going to have a conversation with Ellie, and I know that Ellie is one of the early members that you were speaking with. Do you want to tell us anything about Ellie before we ask Ellie a question?
It's Ellie Wizar, which I found out in writing the book that his real name is Elijah Wizar, and there's a reason for that, which is in the book.
Wait, are you pushing the book?
We're pushing it. I finished it.
Yay!
I did. So now it's going to be back with the editor. We're going to spend a couple days together to finish all the timelines to make sure everything is coherent, and then we'll see what happens.
Nice.
Yeah, so Ellie came in 1991, and he's the first one that appeared. He didn't really appear, it was a voice.
Mm-hmm.
I was listening, I think we talked about this in one of the earlier episodes. You know, my mother had a regression, and it was recorded, and I was told to listen to it in the privacy without my kids around. And when I did, it was a very traumatic experience that she had with two grays that were on either side of her in her bedroom, and she couldn't move, and they were doing something with her. And I found out later that was, as much as it was terrorizing for her, they were trying to help her with a health issue, but there was no communication. When I listened to that on the recording, there was a voice that rose up that said, "We did not do that. I did not do that." And I had no idea what that was. And like, it was a voice that I heard in my head, and it was like, oh, I don't know what that is, or who that is, or why would I be saying that? So I had my own regression, and that's when Ellie Wizar came forward. And he's actually me, by the way. He's one of my, I can't say first incarnations, but he is an incarnation that I chose as a reptilian, interesting enough. So that's how I met him. And then he's introduced me to the other council. At that time, it was the Council of 12. And then it became the Council of 28.
So let's just talk for a minute about Ellie being a reptilian and how that's, Ellie is our friend. Ellie is an ally.
Yes.
Yet reptilians sort of have a bad reputation. Can you say more about that?
There's different levels of reptilians, levels meaning not seniority or authority, even though some of them think they are. The color-wise is either a dark green or a blue-black color. These are the bigger reptilians. I don't see much of those, but they're part of the reptilian culture. Then there's the Dracos, which a lot of people know about, and where Ellie came from, they were in charge of the mines on Maldak. That was a small planet that broke up into what we call the asteroid belt now. And then there's the other reptilians that are, even dragons are considered reptilians, right? So they look a certain way, they look reptilian. Ellie happens to look more like a lizard as opposed to being, so he's green with greenish, yellowish scales. I think you're going to put the picture up with that.
I will.
And then there's another part reptilian and another reptilian that is in the council. And that reptilian is a grifter, and he's more salamander looking. He doesn't have scales because he's lived underground for all his life. In fact, he doesn't particularly care to come topside. There's different categories. There's different purposes. Like the reptilians initially, when they were brought in by the Anunnaki, they work together. They don't particularly care about each other. They don't really, they don't have that camaraderie. But the reptilians were brought onto the planet as being boots on the ground. So they kept law and order. And they didn't have to do much to keep law and order, because just the way they looked was, ominous enough. And then they moved underground too. So I know that there's certain species that are reptilian that are underground that handle things that are there. And some of them have been, military has been aware of them and have encounters with them. When I look at them, there's no definition, just like there's no real bad humans or good humans, right? We have that choice to be whoever we are and what our background is. So the reptilians are basically the same too. There's those that are benevolent and there's those that are malevolent. And somewhere in between, there's those that are trying to be more human. And that's what Ellie has chosen for that particular timeline for him, is to be more humanized, have a deeper understanding of emotions, because he does have them, but you're not allowed to have them as a reptilian where he came from. So, they were very hidden. They were not allowed to be expressed. He coming to Earth and being part of the council, as many on the council are that are coming from other areas, being more humanized and having a deeper respect for life and having more of an open heart of compassion and understanding and empathy. That's what his goal was, is to have more of that as a reptilian, because we have reptilian brains, right? I mean, that's our survival. Mm-hmm. So we're kind of shared in some way.
We've evolved from reptilian, yes?
Did we?
I just assumed that. I don't know if I read that or not, but it seemed reasonable to me, if we still have a reptilian brain, that would have been left over from some other part of us, some other
ancient part of us.
Yeah.
Well, if we take a look at the Anunnaki, they're related. They look more human. They do not look, at least my impression of them or how I see them is they do not look reptilian.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe there's some that do, but I have not experienced that. We are related to the Anunnaki in some way. So I would imagine that, and it is our survival thing, because that comes from no emotion. It comes from action, fright or flight, right? That's where the survival brain comes from. And it's called reptilian because of that, because there is no,
right.
With other animals, the four-leggeds, they have some form of companionship or family or pride or, any of those. The reptilians don't. And part of Ellie's evolution in the timeline that he's in is that they went from egg bearers to live bearers. There is something happening with his particular part of being reptilian.
I have just a general question about reptilians. Is it true that reptilians can transform and look very human and are, probably walking around among us?
Yeah, that's been said too. I've had clients that have seen somebody that's on TV or somebody that's in front of them that shapeshifts to look more reptilian. And I think there's a capability of, that's just not limited to reptilians. I think that's a capability that multidimensionals may have, especially if they're integrated.
Sure.
There's an integration through agreement, right? As opposed to invasion. That, yes, I would believe that there's other beings that can do that too.
Right. Yeah. I've just always found it very interesting. I think whenever I've heard that, it's someone's fear and they're talking about how bad it is. And it's like, well,
that's usually how
I'm not sure that it's so bad. I'm not sure that. I think it could be a fine thing. Like if you were going to come to another planet and you thought they might be hostile to you, it would be great to shapeshift so they didn't kill you, right?
Yes.
Just on that basic level, it seems like a
Yeah.
good idea.
Yeah. I mean, we have no idea who's wandering around with us,
Right,
and they're not all reptilian.
right. Can we speak with Ellie now?
Yes, we can. I need to ask him why he's so. Ellie, I never see Ellie with clothes on other than when I was writing the book, and then he insisted that he needed clothes on. But he's got a hat on, so let me find out what that's about, because he's never wearing a hat ever.
Oh, sure, yeah, please.
He can be humorous at times. So what's coming up is, even in the last couple of weeks, because of there's a shift that's happening in the Council of 28. They are moving things around. They're 5 years. It's actually 10 years since I've been working with the Council of 28. So this is their 5-year anniversary, September, of coming out into the public, when they asked me to do that, and all the paintings and all of that. He's got a hat on because they're on vacation.
That's great. Well, I'm so glad he could break his vacation to meet with you.
Yeah. So he took the hat off, because it was just
It
it was
just-
an information piece for me, because I've been wondering where they've been. They keep saying we're preparing. Yeah, I don't know exactly what that means, but
doesn't sound like vacation if they're doing all
yeah,
that
it doesn't
preparing.
sound like
Not my
vacation,
kind of
but
vacation.
maybe they have a different way of doing things. I'm
Right,
sure.
that's very true. If you wouldn't mind asking Ellie, to tell us about his people, the reptilian race, or his aspect of the reptilian race. What is it like? What are they like?
When he was in Malduck, he had a family. What he would say is that there's no marriage. We created marriage here as a form of discipline, as they look at it. They had family there that were actually destroyed on Malduck. He would say that they live in a peaceful, they are more benevolent, his society of because they were all defectors that came from another planet that were taken to Maldak to work in the mines, just like the Anunnaki had humans working in the mines. So there was ore on Maldak, and that's what their mining was. But he would say, in his evolution of himself as well as them, though that species of reptilian, which he would consider the green glistening reptilians, that they have more of a benevolent heart, that they have a desire to be more human. They wouldn't say that they think that humanity is better. And they don't see themselves as better, but they see that the capability of what humans have been offered is different than what the capability of what reptilians have been offered, and that they're curious about. That he has a very distinct curiosity of wanting to be more than he is or was, and that will continue. He believes that a lot of his friends and family that he has now, which I wasn't even aware of, that are part of his species, that they are on the same wavelength of having that curiosity of other things and not be so disciplined. What the reptilian brain was always about, which is survival, that there's a curiosity to be more in many different fields. He heard you talking about shape-shifting. He would say that that's something on his list, that he would like to learn how to do that.
It's on my list too.
He doesn't think it's so difficult, because time travel he thought was difficult, but then found out that it wasn't. And that intention leads to everything to be created. Whatever you have intention on, that is what he knows to be of value that gets created.
Mm-hmm. It's wonderful. Thank you. How did he come to be on the council?
So the council was developed long before I was conceived, because if Ellie is part of my lineage, it was long before that. It wasn't really a council. It was a group of interested beings that had curiosity and hope for humanity. But as humanity starts to take a download, or a downturn of their choices and that was beginning, really, where they really stepped in more as not just the council, but multidimensionals, was in World War II, when we started to use really weapons against each other, and how we destroyed the earth in some way. That is a non-negotiable to multidimensionals. The earth is. And so when Ellie came forward, when I was, whatever year that was, 91, when he came forward, it was more of a surprise that I heard him. They didn't expect that, but it was a real gift. And that's when they developed more of the, okay, let's do this as a council, and introduce a council of 12 to get me up to speed, right? Because I had to go through all my, whatever I was holding on to in my past lives and timelines and all that. So that they introduced that first. And then the Council of 28 came in as a bigger perspective for humanity of looking at their own timelines and how it interjects and interferes, other people's timelines, their own timelines, interferes with our own evolution and becoming more benevolent. So the council was actually developed came together after Ellie came in, but they were aware and working with each other before, but just were not the council.
Very interesting. What's Ellie's role on the council?
He would say he's still trying to figure that out. They put him in charge to bring everybody together. That is the book. So he was invited to be on the Federation as well, somewhere in his working in the council. He was brought into the Galactic Federation along with V. So V and Ellie were both brought into the Galactic Federation. Your question was?
What's his role?
He still is a mediator in some way, because he interfaces with the Galactic Federation and the council. And when they bring in new beings, because there's always new beings that are evolving universally, they are brought in to be vetted. So it seems like that is part of his role as a mediator between the Galactic Federation, because they would bring them in. He would be part of the team to vet those individuals, that new species, that whatever, to see if they fit in accordance with what is the knowledge or what is the mission, which is, there's a part of the Federation that is a mission to help humans, right, on Earth. So that particular thing, he would see where they fit. They may not. So they would be guided, or they'd be put in another position somewhere, or another, what would they call that? The Federation has organizations. So they would be put into another organization that would be more befitting to them.
The committees.
Committees, yeah. Every committee has a mission. It just depends on, is it directed at Earth, which he was more interested in. And he's not interested in other, at least not at this moment, not interested in other planets or anything like that. So he's kind of like the guide wire that takes beings from the Federation and brings them into the council for wherever that is. So I believe that what the council, now that I'm hearing this, I believe that what the council is doing in the reorganization is that they are also setting up sub-councils so that beings that come in may not be part of the 28. That's why they're bringing in the 5. So he's saying that there's 5 others that are a smaller council that are not part of the 28, but they're considered 33 because they like that number. And we'll probably be introduced to those in the next couple months too. So that's what he does. He's kind of a mediator. He's a teacher. He teaches other humans in their dream state.
What does he like to teach about?
He's fascinated with the history. So he teaches humans their ancient cultures, their ancient history, where they have come from. Not everyone is Anunnaki, because this planet was seeded with other beings, other star nations. It's not just the Anunnaki who started everything. So we have DNA that is from other star beings, other star nations. He determines what that is. He works with, and we've met Sari. So he works with Sari doing some DNA evaluation to find out where those humans may be plugged into. And then in their dream state or their meditative state or in their relaxed place where they are more in tune with who they are, with themselves, then he can feed them some information.
We'll give them little downloads.
Give them little downloads about where they've come from or who they are, brighten up their DNA so that they feel more connected to the multidimensional.
That's great. Tell him I'm really glad that he's doing that.
Yeah, he's not the only one. There's
good, but all the beings that are doing that, I feel grateful for. I feel very grateful. There's that kind of help going on. The Galactic Federation, can you, with Ellie's help, tell us more about it? Like, what exactly is the Galactic Federation? How large is it? Is it just any information about what is the Galactic Federation exactly?
So he would compare it to what we call the internet. Our internet is a plethora of information and categories and people and organizations and companies and all of that. Mm-hmm. So he would say that the Galactic Federation, its initial purpose was prime directive, would have been the basis of saying humanity needs that. Like he's not going to go into what prime directive would do with other beings and other species, but he would say that the prime directive in its initial, and there's 8 light beings on that prime directive that never leave each other. They're like, when I see them, there's like 8 heads on a bright white shoulders and down, right? So they're so interfaced, they're so enmeshed that it's just seeing these heads. So they would have the idea of what humanity would need, but they can't interfere. So what they would do is they would give that to whatever humanity may need this. It would go into the Federation. The Federation would plug it into wherever it felt like that specific need was. Mm-hmm. And then that group, like the council in some way, other councils, other parts of the Federation would take that information and in some way, because there's still, there's the universal law, you cannot interfere with choice. And, but if you're invited in, it's a loophole. They would seed the field, is how they started. They would seed the field, the universal, the unified field with information so that in our meditation, in our dream state, in our choice to reach out, like through prayer or whatever, that would go into the field and they might be able to get a download. That's where the figure 8 comes in. It's that place of sharing. Okay, so the Federation is set up that way. It's like it spreads out to wherever the need is great. And then there's subcategories under that are in affiliation with the Federation, but they are not necessarily the Federation.
Right. Is there something negative that is in opposition to the Galactic Federation that's similar in its structure and size?
Not in its structure and size because the Federation has many moving pieces. And so they see themselves as more of the galactic force, if you want to use that, because they have alignment with others that are maybe not as big. Not everybody belongs to the Galactic Federation. There's other federations that are around, but their desire for good, for beings in general, right? All beings, their desire for good, they feel like they are more encompassing in the cosmic area than the fractions of those that may have disagreements or are not aligned with that mission.
Can you tell us more about multidimensional integration?
Yes, that's the invitation, right? That's the invitation for all humans to look at who they've been in past lives, in their timelines. I mean, that is this council's particular involvement, is looking at old timelines to integrate them, to remove them, to heal them, so that we're not dealing with it as we are in this timeline that we're in right now. Because all those timelines, all that unfinished karma, all that is hanging out there in the field that is not complete, we're seeing it, we're feeling it, it's coming up. It's all part of disclosure of so many things that are emerging on the planet, and Mother Earth herself is in her own evolution and her own healing of timelines. So, we got so much that's happening here for all good reason. And that's why we're really here, because we were invited and we chose to come here in this particular time. The question was again?
Integration, multidimensional integration.
Yeah.
What does that actually mean? Like that I would be integrated. I have a full-on human form, a third dimensional form. I've already learned I have other forms, that I am in other places right now, that aspects of me are maybe on Sirius or some other plane.
Yes.
And so the integration would be that I work more closely with them.
Yeah, the integration, like I feel very integrated with Ellie, right? Because we've been working together for 30 some years. So I feel very integrated with him, knowing his background, feeling him when he's present. But the gifts, they're more interested in, if you're on Sirius, right, and you have a gift of seeing, or you have a gift of healing, or you have a gift of something, right, that if you knew more about that timeline of who you were, which you still are, and you had an interface with that to heal if there was anything to be healed. So we have the tools of the Ho'opono, we have the tools of, you can do any number of modalities and tools to understand that timeline better. But if you had a healing capacity or whatever, once the timeline is healed, you can invite and bring that healing capacity here. It may not be the same because we're in a different form, but there's always the residue or the frequency, or there's something that you can bring forward about that. So like with Ellie, he has the ability, comes from his ancient ancestors from not Meldak, a long time ago, which I don't even know where it was. I only saw the planet once. But he comes in with the ability to heal with glowing blue hands. When I saw that and felt that, I was like, wow, wouldn't that be cool? But my hands-on work with people, no, my hands don't glow blue, but I've had people that are in tune to that frequency say, wow, I can feel something moving in my body, or I can, like, I just got this total body chill, but when you put my hands on, when I put my hands on them, or, there's something about, it was an interface, it was a gift in some way. Now, do I know totally how to use it yet? No, I think I still need to learn how to do that. But I feel like it came from that that integration piece.
Right. So when I think of integration in the third dimension, it's usually pretty total. And so I'm not sure you're talking about that. Like you and Ellie are integrated, but you're not totally integrated. You're still two separate beings sharing a timeline.
Yes.
And you each, as two separate beings on this timeline, have qualities that you have qualities that Ellie doesn't, and Ellie has qualities you don't. Right. But there's some beautiful threads of connection that help you both use those tools sometimes.
Yes.
Is that an accurate way of describing it?
That would be an accurate way. It's not about being the same. It isn't, because that timeline existed how many thousands of years ago.
Right. Right.
And there isn't a blending.
Right.
There isn't a blending like we would see a blending, right? It would be more like if you see the figure 8, there's one person on the end of that figure 8, and there's this one. And so there's shared frequencies of gifts.
I want to say it feels like integration is it's a term that feels a little bit further out than, figuring out who else you are sharing a timeline with. Like before you can have this kind of connection where there's this back and forth beautiful figure 8, going and having this shared aspects of each other, you have to even know that there is a being somewhere that you could have a shared aspect with. And who are these beings that you would have shared aspects with? And I'm wondering if Ellie has any idea how we can get better at knowing that? Is there anything we can do on our side? And I know that we already have spoken about just, going in the field and asking. Is there anything else? Is there any preparation that we could make?
He would say that the first thing you need to have is the curiosity you have to have the belief system that you exist elsewhere. So you need to know what multidimensional means. And then the curiosity of, well, I really feel pulled to the Pleiadians, or I feel pulled to Sirius, or I feel pulled to, Jupiter, any of those places that feels like it's either a common thread that you've been interested in it for years, or now in your present day, you're more awake. And maybe there's people talking to you 3 times in a week about something that's the same. So once that curiosity is sparked, then it is either going in or using your own tools, asking the universe, so do I have a connection to Pleiades or Sirius, or do I have a connection to that? And show me. That's a big one, show me. So that if you're visual, you might get something that is visual, or you might hear a word, or you might, for some people, they get taste, or they, some sensory form. They might even feel that their body shifts into something, but it's staying with it. The biggest thing is with humans that they find is that humans doubt.
Don't we ever?
Yeah. So you get a piece of information, instead of following it, like the breadcrumbs, instead of following it and asking more questions and that type thing, looking on the internet if there's anything about what you just got or any of those things, you just let it go. You go, oh, I don't know what that means. And the day goes on. They would say, as a group, as multidimensionals, Ellie speaking for them, is that the human doubting mind is the place that becomes the derailment for most humans. If they're committed to finding out, then they're going to be taken more and more and more into that place of understanding. And then, you go to somebody that might have information for them that can tap into that timeline and give them some information that will resonate. If it doesn't resonate with the person, I would just say, okay, thank you very much for the information, but it's got to resonate.
Right. Sure. Is there anything else that Ellie wants us to know?
He sees humanity as unique, that we have been given everything, that we have been provided for. So he's very strong about his beliefs and opinions of how we have been given everything on this planet, and how we've misused it, and how we've denied it. And it's not just because of Mother Earth, it's the fact of other planets, other civilizations, other species don't kill each other.
It'd be great if we could stop doing that.
Right. The benevolence that was offered to this planet through our own choice and our own heart of choice, he would see that that was a grand gift, and that we have, through the years, wasted it. Mother Earth is trying to reset. Mother Earth is trying to claim her sovereignty again and saying enough is enough. The multidimensionals are aligned with that. They don't want to see humanity come to an end. They don't want to see it be a cataclysmic event that takes everybody out. They will also not allow humans to participate on other planets that are still in the mindset of what we are.
Right.
He's addressing the galactic traveling that we are attempting to do now, more so than ever. And one of the reasons is to migrate to another planet to set up the same thing as we have here. They cannot allow that. It's past Earth's choice place. We are now into their realm. We are now into something that doesn't really belong to us, and we have no part of, and we don't own it. There's rules and laws that are out there that humans are being governed by, even if they don't know it yet.
Yeah. I'm heartened by that, even though I hear that there's some limits that we might cross that could cause some devastation on some level. I'm heartened because we have to start to learn to stop overstepping our boundaries as a race. We're really pretty wild at that. And that's the whole point. We've overstepped Mother Earth's boundaries. We overstep each other's boundaries and then want to kill each other, or it's wild.
He sees us as an entitled adolescent community. And that is what's happening in this particular timeline, is that there's all about entitlement and very little compassion or understanding or any of those human aspects that he so cherishes.
Right. I cherish them too. I have to say, I'm always marveling when there's human kindness, or like how groups will come together and help each other when we're having floods or disasters, and then we go right back to hating. It's remarkable to me that we have such a capacity to have compassion and love, and then we forget all about it and get all blamey, pointy.
Yeah, it gives us something to do, is what he sees. It becomes an object of our unfinished business. Everybody else becomes an object. If you understood who you were and you accepted the multidimensionality and you saw the gifts that you're even capable of and the choices that you make that could be more benevolent and lead others, you can become a leader in some way. You can create your own, you can own your own sovereignty in some way. That's all the gifts, but we become insecure within the human place, and so we blame others,
and we're back to doubting ourselves and everyone else. We're back to that doubt.
Right.
Yeah.
He would recommend to Sari that in her next experimentation with humans that we unplug the doubt gene.
I would suggest it as well. Let's unplug the doubt gene. Yeah, that's a great idea. I hope Sari can figure out how to do that. I like that very much. She can start with me, no problem. I will put.
Okay, ask for her. Ask for her. I'd be curious to see what happens when you meditate.
I'd be curious.
Ask for her.
And I would be curious to see what happens if she removes my doubt. That would be.
Oh, wouldn't that be something?
Watch out. That's right.
At some point, we should talk about, we did talk about Sari in the chamber, right?
I think we did.
Yeah.
Say more.
Yeah, I've had clients that work in the chamber. They will connect with Sari and they work in the chamber. It's very short, it's whatever, and they come out like flying, like they, so.
Yeah, so I think we do need to talk more about that.
More about that, yeah.
Just right now, can you just say a little bit more about this chamber? Because no, I have not heard about this chamber.
So it's the transformation chamber that I was introduced to. I was introduced to it probably in 92.
Uh-huh.
I just called it the transformation chamber. I knew what it looked like. I had no idea. It wasn't really used, but they told me about it. When we do the 246, when I was introduced to the 28, and they said, the transformation chamber is really 246. 246 is the second, fourth, and sixth chakra that I've worked with the Council of 28 and the groups to take people up with their DNA to the council room. Okay. It was that place of bringing in new DNA, because once you're in the council room and they work with you or whatever, you have a new spark in the DNA. So you bring that down, and now it's integrated into your physical form. It moved into that. Now, the interesting thing, the EE system is the chamber in coming into physical form.
Wow.
Yeah. So it does change DNA. It does. It itself, isn't it? It offers the field, like they're bringing in the unified field,
right?
So that your body sitting in that, being present with that, your body does the figure 8 and brings in that energy of whatever needs for you to be healed. So you're sitting in the field and you're getting that information, you're getting that frequencies for your own healing of whatever needs to be healed at that time. The chamber has had its evolution as well.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for elaborating. And back to Ellie, is there anything else we can do? This is my last question for our day. And I just want to know how we can be more participatory. How can we be a partner rather than.
Oh, so how can we be helpful to them too? See, they don't see us as that, other than if we just keep saying, give me more, then that's something else, right? But when you connect with them, when there is a sharing, so they get the opportunity, even if it's in that figure 8 and not that immersed, you become me, I become you. It's not that, right? But they get that opportunity to be more in the human form of what that's like. So they're not us, but they have a better relationship with what it's like to be human. They can, so to speak, they kind of follow us because we are in their field, right? And they are in our field. They have more access to that. So they are learning from us. They are learning what works and they're learning what doesn't work. They are learning for other humans on other planets to guide them in a way to avoid anything like what is happening here or worse. What we can do for that is basically ask and be in meditation and be in that harmonious heartfelt resonance with the field, because that's where they live. We all live in the field, right?
Well, and that's the easiest thing we can do, really.
That is the easiest thing we can do.
It really is. I mean, that's not a big ask. It's about our time. It's about a little bit of time and settling ourselves and being able to take control of our minds so we're not spinning in that high beta state.
It's the commitment. Like when you think of the 7 seeds, the acceptance and allowance, the third one is the commitment. And it's not commitment to them, it's commitment to ourselves to know all that we are.
Right. Yeah, the 7 seeds are pretty spectacular. I keep wanting to write them all down somewhere where I can just look at those words every day. And I don't. Well, I might have, and they're here somewhere. But I'd like them out in the front. Is there anything else you'd like to say today, Darlene?
I mean, speaking to Ellie, I'm just very grateful that he said what he said 30 some years ago that led me on a path of my own cleaning up, of knowing who I was, and all the instruction and the teaching and the lessons and everything that they've given me through the last 30 some years to be a better person.
Well, and what you've shared with the rest of us is pretty spectacular as well, given that it started with Ellie. Is pretty, I feel very grateful to him for that moment.
Well, good. He tips his hat to you, is what he's
Great.
Funny dude. Maybe he took humor from somebody. I'm trying to find out where that is.
Go talk to Sari. She wants some.
Go talk to Sari. Where do you get that humor? Right.
Right. Wherever he got it from, he can share it with her.
Yes.
All right. Well, that's all for today.
Great. It was nice. It was nice having everybody here. Okay.
All right.
Have a good,
Bye-bye.
great one. Bye.